Claire Bennett knew something was wrong when a woman in a white Dior gown entered Eleanor Vale's birthday party. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel glowed beneath crystal chandeliers. Beyond the tall windows, Manhattan shimmered against the winter sky. Investors, hospital executives, politicians, and wealthy donors moved between tables covered with white roses and silver champagne buckets. Claire stood beside Eleanor's chair, quietly checking the older woman's pulse. "Your heart is racing," Claire whispered. "I could say the same about yours," Eleanor replied. Claire smiled and smoothed her blue dress. Ethan had bought it for her 2 years earlier. That morning, he had insisted she wear it tonight. For 6 years, Claire had stood beside Ethan Vale. She had loved him before Vale Senior Living became a national company. She had brought him coffee during 18-hour workdays, reviewed presentations on her old MacBook Air, and cared for his mother after a serious stroke. 3 weeks earlier, Ethan's assistant had casually asked Claire for her ring size. Tonight, Claire believed he would finally propose. Eleanor squeezed her hand. "Whatever happens, you must remember who you are." Claire frowned. "Why would you say that?" Before Eleanor could answer, applause filled the ballroom. Ethan stepped onto the stage in a black tuxedo. His Rolex flashed beneath the lights as he adjusted the microphone. Claire's breath caught. Dominic Moretti stood near the windows, watching silently. Most guests knew him as the chairman of Moretti Logistics. Others knew there were parts of his business no newspaper dared describe. Dominic had been Ethan's closest friend since high school. Tonight, however, he did not look proud. He looked worried. "Thank you for joining us to honor my mother," Ethan began. "She taught me that a family name is both a privilege and a responsibility." Claire felt Eleanor's hand become cold. Ethan looked toward her table. For one beautiful second, Claire thought he was looking at her. Then he extended his hand toward the woman in white. "Madison, please join me." Madison Calloway walked onto the stage. She was the daughter of Senator Richard Calloway and the public face of the Calloway Foundation. Claire had met her several times at charity events. Madison had always been polite, distant, and strangely comfortable around Ethan. Ethan announced a partnership between Vale Senior Living and the Calloway Foundation. Guests applauded. Then he reached inside his jacket. Claire stopped breathing. He removed a small Tiffany box, opened it, and lowered himself onto one knee before Madison. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Champagne glasses rose. Madison covered her mouth and pretended to be surprised before saying yes. Claire remained beside Eleanor's chair, unable to move. 6 years of promises disappeared beneath the applause. Ethan found Claire near the side doors 10 minutes later. "You should have told me," she whispered. "This was complicated. Were you sleeping with her?" Ethan glanced toward the guests. "Lower your voice. You promised we would get married. I promised we would discuss it." Claire stared at him. "Was I ever going to be your wife?" Ethan exhaled impatiently. "You were good enough to stay beside me when I had nothing," he said. "But you were never good enough to become Mrs. Vale." Several nearby guests heard him. Madison approached holding a cream envelope. "This should help you begin again," she said. "Think of it as our family's gratitude for your years of service." Claire looked at the envelope, then at Ethan. She removed the Tiffany bracelet he had given her and placed it in his hand. "I was never your servant." Claire walked through the ballroom while whispers followed her. Outside, rain swept across Fifth Avenue. She had no umbrella, no plan, and nowhere she could afford to live without Ethan. A black Mercedes stopped beside her. Dominic stepped out and opened the rear door. Claire shook her head. "I don't need another powerful man deciding what happens to me." Dominic looked back at the hotel. "No," he said quietly. "But you need to know Ethan has already ordered your apartment cleared." Claire's face went pale. Then Dominic revealed the one truth that made her realize the public betrayal was only the beginning. Ethan had never planned to let her leave with the evidence she did not yet know she possessed. Claire stared at Dominic as rain ran down her face. "What evidence?" she asked. Dominic's expression remained calm, but his eyes moved toward the entrance of the Plaza Hotel. "Not here." Claire stepped away from the open door of his Mercedes. "I'm not getting into your car. You don't trust me. You are Ethan's best friend." "I was." The answer came without hesitation. Claire wrapped her arms around herself. Her blue dress was already soaked, and the cold wind cut through the thin fabric. Still, she refused to move. 6 years earlier, Ethan had told her Dominic Moretti was the kind of man people obeyed because they were afraid not to. Claire had met him at dinners and charity events, but they had never spoken alone for more than a few minutes. Dominic had always kept his distance. Tonight, he was the only person who had followed her. Claire pulled out her iPhone and called Ethan. The call went directly to voicemail. She tried the apartment building next. The night manager answered after several rings. "Miss Bennett," he said uncomfortably, "Mr. Vale's office instructed us to remove your access from the system." Claire felt the sidewalk tilt beneath her. "My medication is there. My mother's documents are there. 2 suitcases were packed for you. They are being held at the front desk." "Who packed them?" The manager was silent. Claire already knew the answer. "Madison." She ended the call and looked at Dominic. Did you know he was going to do this? No, but you knew he wasn't going to marry me. Dominic's jaw tightened. I knew he had doubts. That is a polite way to describe 6 years of lying. Claire turned away and raised her hand for a taxi. 2 cabs passed without stopping. Dominic took off his coat and held it out to her. She refused it. I don't need your pity. It isn't pity. Then what is it? Dominic looked at her for a long moment. Respect. The word hurt more than she expected. Inside the ballroom, Ethan had treated her as if she were an employee whose contract had ended. Dominic, a man she barely knew, was treating her like someone whose choices mattered. A taxi finally stopped. Claire opened the door. Dominic did not try to prevent her from leaving. He handed her a plain business card. If Ethan contacts you tonight, do not sign anything. Why would he ask me to sign something? Because humiliation was only the first step. Claire wanted to ask more, but the taxi driver leaned on the horn. She got inside. When Claire reached the luxury apartment tower on Park Avenue, the doorman could not meet her eyes. 2 large suitcases waited beside the reception desk. Everything she owned had been compressed into them. Her clothes were folded carelessly. Her nursing certificates had been bent. Her old MacBook Air was pushed between 2 pairs of shoes without protection. A small plastic bag contained her mother's medication records. The jewelry Ethan had given her was gone. So were the photographs of her father. Claire opened the first suitcase again, searching faster. They were in a wooden box, she told the manager. Old photographs and my father's watch. I'm sorry, Miss Bennett. This is everything we received. The elevator doors opened. Madison stepped into the lobby wearing a cashmere coat over her white Dior gown. She carried Claire's apartment key between 2 fingers. You should not have come here, Madison said. I lived here. The lease is in Ethan's name. For 4 years. Madison's smile remained gentle. That does not make it yours. Claire pointed toward the suitcases. Where are my family photographs? I wouldn't know. You packed my things. I supervised. Claire's hands began to tremble, but she refused to cry in front of her. Madison moved closer. Ethan is trying to make this transition easier for everyone. Do not embarrass yourself by fighting over an apartment you never paid for. Claire had paid in other ways. She had cooked dinner when Ethan worked late. She had cared for Eleanor through months of rehabilitation. She had postponed graduate school because Ethan said they would start a family soon. None of those sacrifices appeared on a lease. Madison lowered her voice. Stay away from Dominic. Claire looked up sharply. Why do you care? Men like Dominic do not help people without expecting payment. And men like Ethan? Madison's expression hardened for the first time. Ethan understands reality. No, Ethan understands transactions. Claire took both suitcases and walked outside. She called Natalie Ruiz, a former nursing school classmate who lived in Queens with her 9-year-old daughter. Natalie answered on the second ring. Claire? What happened? Claire opened her mouth, but no words came out. Natalie heard her breathing and said, Send me your location. You are staying with us. An hour later, Claire was sitting on a worn sofa above a laundromat in Queens. Natalie's daughter was asleep in the next room. The apartment smelled of laundry soap and reheated soup. Natalie placed a blanket around Claire's shoulders. You gave him 6 years, she whispered. He could not even give you one honest conversation. That was when Claire finally cried. Not loudly. She covered her mouth so the child would not hear, while Natalie sat beside her and held her hand. Across Manhattan, Dominic returned to the plaza. He found Ethan in a private lounge, drinking whiskey as if nothing had happened. You cleared her apartment before the announcement, Dominic said. Ethan checked his Rolex. She needed a clean break. You threatened her mother's care. Ethan's eyes narrowed. I protected my family from a woman who might become emotional. Dominic removed the silver pin Ethan had given him when they were teenagers and placed it on the table. What is that supposed to mean? It means you no longer use my name, my companies, or my protection. Ethan laughed. You would end 30 years of friendship over Claire? No, Dominic said. You ended it when you decided her loyalty made her disposable. The following morning, Claire received an email from her employer. Every patient on her schedule had been reassigned after an anonymous complaint accused her of crossing professional boundaries with the Vale family. She had lost her home and her income in less than 12 hours. Then another message appeared from an unknown number. A photograph showed her mother sitting alone beside a window at the care facility. Beneath it were 14 words. Leave New York and stay away from Dominic, or your mother loses her room on Friday. Claire did not sleep that night. She sat on Natalie's sofa with her iPhone in both hands, staring at the photograph of her mother. Margaret Bennett was sitting beside a window at Green Meadow Care Center in Pennsylvania. Her gray hair was neatly brushed, and a pale blue blanket covered her knees. She looked safe, but someone had been close enough to photograph her without permission. Natalie read the message again. Call the police. And tell them what? Claire asked. The message came from an unknown number. They did not say they would hurt her. They threatened to take away her room. The assistance program pays almost half the cost. Without it, I cannot keep her there. Natalie sat beside her. You cannot do what Ethan wants. Claire closed her eyes. I do not know what he wants. He threw me away, but now he is threatening me for leaving. By sunrise, Claire had made her decision. She borrowed Natalie's car and drove to Pennsylvania. Green Meadow was a modest but well-run care center surrounded by bare trees and quiet farmland. Claire had chosen it because the nurses knew every resident by name. Margaret was in the activity room folding paper napkins. When she saw Claire, her face brightened. My girl. Claire hugged her tightly. Margaret touched Claire's wet cheek. Why are you crying? I'm just tired. Where is Ethan? Claire froze. Her mother's memory changed from hour to hour. Some days, she remembered Claire's childhood clearly. On other days, she believed Claire was still in college. He could not come. Margaret looked at Claire's left hand. No ring yet? Claire tried to smile. No, Mom. That man kept you waiting too long. The words were simple, but they broke something inside Claire. She sat beside her mother and held both of her hands. There will not be a wedding. Margaret studied her face. Did he leave you? Claire nodded. For a moment, Margaret seemed completely clear. I'm sorry, she whispered. You have nothing to be sorry for. I should have given you more. Mom, a better family. More money. The kind of home where people like him would not look down on you. Claire's breath caught. Ethan's cruelty had traveled farther than she realized. It had reached her mother, a woman who had spent her life working at a public library and saving coins in a glass jar so Claire could attend nursing school. You gave me everything, Claire said. You taught me how to care for people. You taught me not to lie. You taught me to work for what I have. Margaret looked confused again. Is your father coming for dinner? Claire lowered her head and cried into her mother's hands. Her father had been dead for 11 years. A nurse quietly entered the room and waited until Margaret became distracted by the napkins. Miss Bennett, the administrator needs to speak with you. The administrator's office was small and smelled of coffee. A file was already open on the desk. The Vale Family Assistance Fund suspended your mother's support this morning, the administrator explained. The notice says her eligibility is under review. A. How much do I need to pay? An additional $4,200 next month. Claire felt cold. I just lost my job. I'm sorry. We can give you 30 days. But after that, we may have to discuss a transfer. The nearest public facility had a 6-month waiting list and almost twice as many residents per nurse. Claire stepped into the hallway and called Ethan. This time, he answered. I knew you would call, he said. You threatened my mother. I did not threaten anyone. Her assistance was canceled. Suspended. You sent me a photograph of her. I have no idea what you are talking about. His voice was smooth and calm, which frightened Claire more than anger would have. What do you want? Come to my office. 2 hours later, Claire entered Vale Tower on Park Avenue. Ethan waited behind a wide desk, dressed in a dark suit. A Mont Blanc pen rested beside a printed agreement. He pointed to the chair across from him. Claire remained standing. Restore my mother's funding. Sign the agreement. She picked up the first page. It required her to keep their relationship private, avoid all contact with journalists, surrender any company documents in her possession, and stay away from Dominic Moretti. I do not have company documents. Then that condition should not trouble you. Why does Dominic matter? Because he is using you to attack me. Dominic gave me a business card. You took my home and my job. Ethan leaned back. You are emotional. You humiliated me in front of hundreds of people. I made a business decision. I was your partner. You were never part of my business. Claire stared at the man she had loved. Did you ever intend to marry me? For the first time, Ethan looked uncomfortable. In the beginning, perhaps? What changed? I became responsible for thousands of employees and investors. A wife in my position must bring stability, influence, and the right connections. And I brought nothing? You brought comfort. The answer cut deeper than the public rejection. Claire placed the agreement on the desk. My mother is not a weapon. Then do not force me to treat her care like a negotiation. Claire pushed the Mont Blanc pen back toward him. I will find another way. Outside the building, she sat on the stone steps and covered her face. A black Mercedes waited across the street. Dominic did not approach immediately. He allowed her to cry until she finally looked up. Then he crossed the street, carrying 2 cups of coffee. I told you I do not need rescuing, she said. I know. He sat 1 step below her. Claire told him about the agreement and her mother's funding. Dominic listened without interrupting. My mother died in a care center that reduced its nursing staff to increase profit, he said. I learned too late that wealthy people often hide cruelty inside paperwork. He handed Claire a card for a community health center in Brooklyn. They need someone who understands patient records. It is paid work. Claire looked at him suspiciously. What do you get from this? Nothing. No one gives something for nothing. Dominic's eyes met hers. Then prove me wrong. The next morning, Claire began reviewing files at the Brooklyn Center. Within 2 hours, she found 6 elderly patients whose Vale assistance had been canceled after payments were approved. One invoice carried Eleanor Vale's electronic signature. Claire had seen Eleanor sign hundreds of birthday cards and medical forms. The signature on the invoice was wrong. When Claire traced the payment, she discovered the money had not gone to patient care. It had been transferred to a company that officially did not exist. The company listed on the invoice was called North Harbor Consulting. Claire searched the name on her MacBook Air. No website, no office address, no employee records. Only a registration filed 18 months earlier in Delaware and a post office box in New Jersey. The payment was just under $200,000. Claire checked the next invoice. The same company appeared again. Then a third time. By noon, she had found more than $1 million in payments connected to patients whose financial assistance had been reduced or canceled. She printed the records and locked them inside a cabinet. The Brooklyn Center's director, Dr. Samuel Price, entered the office carrying 2 paper cups. "You have been staring at that screen for 4 hours," he said. Claire accepted the coffee. "I found something." Dr. Price studied the invoices. His expression changed. "These are Vale accounts. The money was approved for patient support, but it was sent to a consulting company. Does Moretti know?" "I have not told him." Dr. Price lowered his voice. "You should understand where you are working. Dominic Moretti funds this center, but he does not control the medical decisions. He made that rule himself." Claire looked toward the hallway, where nurses pushed residents toward the dining room. Why would a man like him care about a place like this? Dr. Price leaned against the desk. His mother died in a private care facility. The company cut night staff to improve quarterly profits. She fell and remained on the floor for nearly 6 hours. Claire remembered what Dominic had told her on the steps outside Vale Tower. "I thought he was trying to make me trust him. He does not talk about her unless he trusts someone." That evening, Claire stayed late to compare the invoices with patient records. Around 8, she heard voices near the rehabilitation room. Dominic stood beside the bed of an elderly man named Frank DeLuca, a former truck driver who had recently been diagnosed with terminal lung disease. Dominic was not wearing a suit. His sleeves were rolled up and his expensive watch was gone. He held a stack of letters. Frank's hands shook too badly to open them. "My daughter writes too much," Frank joked weakly. Dominic pulled a chair closer. "Your daughter worries too much. She gets that from her mother." Dominic opened the first letter and began reading. Claire remained in the doorway. The letter described Frank's granddaughter's school play, a broken kitchen faucet, and a family dinner waiting for him when he became strong enough to return home. Frank closed his eyes and smiled. When the reading ended, Dominic adjusted the blanket around the man's shoulders and placed a glass of water within reach. There were no bodyguards in the room. No threats. No fear. Only an aging man and someone who had not forgotten what he once did for his family. Dominic noticed Claire when he stepped into the hallway. "You work late." "So do you." "He drove for my father for 28 years. "You read to all your former employees?" "Only the ones who once carried me out of a burning car." Claire could not tell whether he was joking. Dominic looked toward the folder beneath her arm. "You found something." She brought him into the records room and showed him the invoices. He read every page without speaking. "North Harbor Consulting," he finally said. "Do you know it?" "No. You answered too quickly." Dominic met her eyes. "If it belonged to me, I would tell you." Claire folded her arms. "Would you?" "Yes. Ethan lied to me for 6 years. I am not Ethan. You are still a man with secrets." Dominic did not argue. "That is true." His honesty unsettled her more than a denial would have. Claire pointed to Eleanor's electronic signature. "She did not sign this." "I know the shape of her handwriting. She always presses harder on the last letter of her name." Dominic examined the page again. "If Ethan used her authority without permission, this is more than an accounting problem. I need proof before I accuse anyone. You need a lawyer. I need a job and enough money to keep my mother in her room. You need all three." The following morning, Dominic arranged a meeting at Moretti Logistics on Park Avenue. Claire expected dark rooms and armed men. Instead, the building was filled with glass offices, shipping maps, market reports, and employees discussing port schedules. Dominic introduced her to Rebecca Sloan, an attorney who specialized in healthcare fraud and whistleblower protection. Rebecca reviewed the documents on an iPad. "These records are concerning," she said, "but copies alone will not prove who ordered the transfers." "Can we trace the company?" Claire asked. "Possibly. But you must stop searching from Vale Systems. If someone notices, they may destroy evidence or accuse you of stealing confidential information." Claire looked at Dominic. "Is this why you brought me here?" "Partly. What is the other reason?" Dominic led her to a conference room overlooking Manhattan. On the table sat a detailed proposal for the abandoned rehabilitation building in Brooklyn. The title read Bennett House. Claire stared at it. "You named it after me?" "I used the name you wrote in your old project application." She looked up sharply. "How did you get that?" "You submitted it 3 years ago to a foundation my company supports." Claire remembered the rejection email. Dominic explained that the project had been considered too small and too dependent on charitable donations. "I can introduce you to investors who fund community health projects," he said. But you will make the presentation. You will answer their questions. The project will remain yours. Claire touched the cover carefully. Why are you doing this? Because Ethan convinced you that your dream was unrealistic. And you want to prove him wrong? No. Dominic stepped closer. I want you to prove yourself right. For the next week, Claire worked every night at Natalie's kitchen table. She calculated staffing costs, insurance, medical equipment, and affordable payment plans. Natalie's daughter colored pictures beside her while Claire rebuilt the dream she had abandoned for Ethan. At the investor meeting, a gray-haired executive looked over Claire's proposal. You are a nurse, he said. Why should anyone trust you to run a facility? Claire thought of her mother, Eleanor, and the patients whose funding had disappeared. Because I know what happens when people making financial decisions never sit beside the patients affected by them. The room became silent. 2 investors approved the next review stage. Afterward, Dominic invited Claire to dinner. This is not a date, she warned. Of course not. At the restaurant, Claire laughed for the first time since the gala. Then she noticed Ethan standing across the room with Madison. He walked toward their table and smiled. Claire always did recover quickly, Ethan said, especially when a richer man offered her a better seat. Dominic began to stand. Claire placed one hand on his arm. She looked directly at Ethan. Dominic gave me an opportunity. You gave me conditions. Ethan's smile disappeared. Claire took her coat and walked out beside Dominic. Across the restaurant, Ethan watched them leave and called a private investigator. His instruction was simple. Find something in Claire's past that would destroy Bennett House before it ever opened. Ethan's private investigator was named Daniel Cross. He had once worked in corporate security and knew how to make ordinary facts look suspicious. Within 3 days, he had Claire's employment records, credit history, college transcripts, and photographs of her entering Moretti Logistics. Ethan studied the file in his Park Avenue office. There must be more, he said. Daniel placed another photograph on the desk. It showed Claire laughing beside Dominic outside the restaurant. She has no criminal record, Daniel replied. No hidden debt. No affairs. No disciplinary action at work. Ethan looked irritated. Everyone has something. Sometimes a person is simply who she appears to be. Ethan pushed the photographs aside. That is not what I am paying you to tell me. Across the room, Madison stood near the window, pretending to read an email on her iPhone. She had noticed how often Ethan checked Claire's social media. He searched for new photographs, news about Bennett House, and any mention of Dominic Moretti. You seem very interested in a woman you said was beneath you, Madison said. Ethan looked up. This is business. Is it? Dominic is using her to embarrass me. Madison turned toward him. Claire did not look embarrassed in that photograph. Ethan's jaw tightened. She is confused. Dominic knows how to make vulnerable people feel protected. Madison gave a cold smile. You did not mind her being vulnerable when she depended on you. Ethan closed the file. Our engagement brought your family access to Vale Senior Living. Do not turn this into a personal argument. Madison heard the warning clearly. She was not a loved woman. She was another business arrangement. Meanwhile, Claire stood inside the abandoned rehabilitation center in Brooklyn. Dust covered the floors, paint peeled from the walls, and several windows had been boarded up. But behind the building was a small garden where sunlight reached through 2 old maple trees. Claire could already imagine residents sitting there in spring. An architect showed her plans on an iPad. The structure is sound, he said, but the electrical system, elevators, and medical plumbing need to be replaced. How much? He gave her the number. Claire's hope weakened. The renovation would cost almost twice the original estimate. Dominic stood several feet away, speaking with a contractor. When the others left, he approached her. I can purchase the building through Moretti Properties, he said. No, you have not heard the terms. I do not want Bennett House to belong to you. His expression changed slightly. I was not asking to own the project, but people will say I slept with a powerful man and received a building. People already say things that are not true. I have spent 6 years being treated like everything in my life came from Ethan. I will not repeat that mistake. Dominic nodded. Then we find another way. Claire had expected him to argue. Instead, he called Rebecca Sloan and requested a list of independent healthcare investors who might consider a community development loan. That afternoon, Claire met Rebecca in a quiet conference room. Rebecca examined the invoices connected to North Harbor Consulting. I traced the post office box, she said. It belongs to to a corporate registration service. The company's owner is hidden behind another entity. Can Ethan do that legally? Creating companies is legal. Moving patient assistance money into them may not be. Rebecca slid a document across the table. There is something else. Several payments were approved using Eleanor Vale's electronic authorization after the date Ethan told the board she was no longer mentally capable of making financial decisions. Claire stared at the dates. So he claimed she was incompetent, then continued using her signature. That contradiction matters. Claire remembered Eleanor's warning at the gala. Whatever happens, you must remember who you are. Should I call her? Not from your phone, Rebecca said. And do not confront Ethan. We need original records, not only copies. That evening, Claire returned to Natalie's apartment. The front door was slightly open. She stopped in the hallway. Natalie? No answer. Claire called 911, then pushed the door with the toe of her shoe. The living room had been searched. Couch cushions lay on the floor. Kitchen drawers were open. Her clothes had been pulled from the suitcase. Her MacBook Air was still on the table. So was Natalie's cash envelope near the refrigerator. Nothing valuable appeared to be missing. Claire hurried to the bedroom where she had stored copies of the Vale invoices. The folder was gone. Natalie and her daughter arrived minutes later. Claire felt sick when the little girl saw the damaged apartment and began crying. This happened because of me, Claire whispered. Natalie took her daughter into the hallway while police searched the rooms. Dominic arrived 20 minutes later with 2 security officers. Claire stood near the window, angry and frightened. I told you I did not want your world following me. This is not my world, Dominic said. This is Ethan, trying to frighten you. You cannot know that. No. But whoever entered took only the documents connected to Vale. He wanted Claire and Natalie moved to a secure apartment. Claire refused. I will not turn their lives upside down again. Dominic lowered his voice. Then let me place security outside. I do not want armed men frightening Natalie's child. They will look like ordinary building staff. Claire studied him. Everything with you has another layer. That is how I stayed alive. And is that how I am supposed to live now? Dominic had no easy answer. He inspected the door while Claire checked her remaining papers. A small Amazon package sat beneath the kitchen table. Claire had ordered a used copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius to help her sleep. She opened the box. The book was inside, but someone had placed a folded note between the first pages. The message was typed. A woman who knows too much should learn when to remain silent. Claire felt Dominic reading over her shoulder. His face became cold. He asked one of his men to seal the note in a plastic evidence bag. Then Claire found something beneath the empty folder shelf. It was an old photograph of Eleanor signing a birthday card. Eleanor held the pen in her left hand. Claire looked again at the suspicious electronic signatures. Every one of them leaned in the opposite direction. Dominic's phone rang. He listened for several seconds, then turned toward Claire. The security team had found a small camera across the street, aimed directly at Natalie's apartment window. When Dominic checked the latest recording, he saw the man who had entered the apartment, and the man was wearing a Vale Senior Living employee badge. The Vale Senior Living badge belonged to a man named Aaron Pike. According to company records, Aaron worked in the maintenance department at one of Ethan's facilities in New Jersey. The security camera showed him entering Natalie's building at 6:14 p.m. and leaving 12 minutes later with a folder hidden beneath his jacket. Claire watched the recording twice. Call the police, she said. Dominic's security chief shook his head. The image is clear, but it does not prove who sent him. It proves he broke into the apartment. It may also warn Ethan that we know where to look, Dominic said. Claire turned toward him. So we do nothing? We preserve the evidence and let Rebecca decide the next step. Claire hated how calm he sounded. My friend's child is afraid to sleep in her own bedroom. I know. No, you do not. Dominic's face tightened, but he did not argue. Natalie and her daughter stayed with relatives that night. Claire moved into a small furnished apartment owned by Moretti Logistics, but only after Dominic agreed to her conditions. No cameras inside. No one entering without permission. No decisions made about her mother without consulting her. Dominic accepted every condition. The next morning, Rebecca contacted the police and provided the recording. Aaron Pike had already disappeared from his apartment. His supervisor claimed he had taken emergency leave. Then Claire received a call from a number she did not recognize. Claire? The voice was weak but familiar. Eleanor? Do not say my name loudly. Claire sat up. Where are you? At home. Ethan took my phone. I found an old one in the kitchen. Are you safe? For now. Eleanor lowered her voice. I need to see you. There are things you do not understand. Claire looked toward the security guard outside the apartment. When? Today. Ethan is attending a board meeting until 4. Rebecca advised against going alone. Dominic wanted to send 6 men. Claire refused. If Ethan sees a convoy outside his mother's house, he will know she spoke to us. Dominic stood beside the conference table, clearly unhappy. I will drive you. No. Claire, you said I would make my own decisions. He was silent for several seconds. Finally, he handed her a small emergency device. Press this once if you feel unsafe. Claire took it. That is all? That is all. It was the first time a powerful man had looked afraid for her and still allowed her to choose. Claire drove to the Vale estate in Greenwich using Natalie's borrowed car. The mansion stood behind iron gates and winter-bare trees. The main guard refused to admit her, but an elderly driver named Walter opened a service entrance near the garden. "Mrs. Vale has been waiting," he said. Claire found Eleanor in an upstairs bedroom. The older woman appeared thinner than she had at the gala. Her medication bottles were lined up on a silver tray, but 2 labels showed doses Claire knew were unusually high. "Who changed these?" Claire asked. "The new doctor Ethan hired." "Do they make you sleepy?" "All day." Claire photographed the labels with her iPhone. Eleanor reached for her hand. "I am not confused, Claire." "I know. Ethan tells everyone I am." Claire sat beside her. "Did you authorize payments to North Harbor Consulting?" Eleanor's eyes filled with anger. I had never heard that name until last month. She explained that after her stroke, Ethan had asked her to transfer control of the Family Assistance Fund. Eleanor refused because she did not trust several new directors he had hired. Soon afterward, electronic versions of her signature began appearing on documents. "I confronted him," Eleanor said. "He told me the company could not survive if an old woman questioned every decision." "Did you keep proof?" Eleanor looked toward the bedroom door. Then she slowly stood. Claire helped her cross the room to an antique wardrobe. Eleanor removed a velvet box bearing the Cartier name. Inside was an old watch that no longer worked. Beneath the cushion was a small black hard drive. "I copied emails, bank statements, and board records," Eleanor said. "Everything I could access before Ethan changed my passwords." Claire reached for it, but Eleanor closed the box. "Before I give this to you, I need to know what you intend to do." "Expose him." "That is anger speaking. He stole money from elderly patients." "Yes. But if Vale Senior Living collapses tomorrow, thousands of residents may lose care, and thousands of workers may lose jobs." Claire looked down. A part of her wanted Ethan humiliated before the same people who had watched him reject her. She wanted him to feel powerless. But she remembered the patients in Brooklyn. "I do not want revenge if innocent people pay for it," Claire said. "I want the money returned. I want the patients protected. And I want whoever committed the crime to face the law." Eleanor studied her face, then placed the box in Claire's hands. "That is why it had to be you." Footsteps sounded in the hallway. The bedroom door opened. Ethan entered. His expression changed when he saw Claire. "What are you doing here?" "Your mother called me." "My mother is not well." "I am standing right here," Eleanor said. Ethan ignored her. His eyes moved toward the Cartier box in Claire's hands. "That belongs to my family." Eleanor's voice became firm. "It belongs to me." Ethan stepped closer. "Give it back, Claire." She placed it inside her medical bag. "No." For a moment, the polite businessman disappeared. Claire saw pure fear in his face. Then he smiled. "I can restore your mother's funding today. I can also give you enough money to open Bennett House. All I have to do is disappear and stay away from Dominic." Claire walked toward the door. Ethan leaned close enough that only she could hear. "Dominic will never marry you. Men like him may protect women like you, but they do not bring them into the family." Claire met his eyes. "At least he never made me ashamed of who I was." She left the estate. Halfway down the steep driveway, Natalie's car failed to slow. Claire pressed the brake again. Nothing happened. The car gained speed toward the iron gate. She pulled the emergency brake and turned the wheel. The car crashed into a stone wall, throwing her against the seatbelt. Dominic arrived minutes later after Claire pressed the emergency device. He crouched beside the damaged car while his security chief examined the brake line. It had been cut. Then the man reached beneath the rear bumper and removed a tracking device marked with a serial number. The device was registered to the same Vale security division that employed the man who had broken into Natalie's apartment. Claire woke beneath bright hospital lights, with pain spreading across her chest. For one terrible second, she could not remember what had happened. Then she saw Dominic sitting beside the bed. His white shirt was stained with dirt from the crash site. His jacket lay across a chair, and both hands were clenched as if he were holding back something dangerous. "The hard drive," Claire whispered. "It is safe." "My mother?" "Also safe." Rebecca moved her to another facility before Ethan could interfere. Claire closed her eyes in relief. A doctor entered and explained that she had a bruised shoulder, several cuts, and a mild concussion. The seatbelt had likely saved her life. Dominic waited until the doctor left. "Tell me Ethan threatened you," he said. "He offered me money." "That was not my question." Claire remembered Ethan standing close in the hallway, telling her that Dominic would never bring a woman like her into his family. "He wanted the Cartier box." Dominic stood. "I am going to speak with him." "No. He cut your brakes." "We do not know," Ethan ordered it. "The tracking device came from his security division. That is evidence for the police, not permission for you to hurt him." Dominic looked toward the window. "You think I cannot control myself? I think you have spent your life solving problems through fear. His silence confirmed she was right. Claire reached for his hand. If you threaten Ethan now, he will tell everyone the dangerous mafia boss is attacking an innocent businessman because of a woman. He will make himself the victim. Dominic slowly sat down again. What do you want me to do? Let Rebecca handle it legally. That may not be enough. It has to be. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Dominic nodded. I will follow your decision. The promise mattered more to Claire than he understood. 3 days later, Rebecca assembled a forensic accounting team at Moretti Logistics. The hard drive contained thousands of emails, bank transfers, board minutes, and internal reports. The first confirmed total was nearly $18 million. Money intended for elderly residents had been moved through North Harbor Consulting and several other companies. Some of it covered losses from Ethan's failed luxury apartment project. Another portion had gone to an organization connected to Senator Callaway's re-election campaign. Rebecca looked across the conference table. This is serious enough for federal investigators. Then we give it to them, Claire said. Not yet. Several files are copies without complete digital records. Ethan's lawyers may claim they were altered. Eleanor had saved the truth. But not every document could survive a courtroom challenge. They needed original records from Vale's servers, or testimony from someone involved in the transfers. Claire returned to work at the Brooklyn Center while Rebecca continued the investigation. She also moved forward with Bennett House. A community investment group approved the first stage of financing. The abandoned building passed its structural inspection. For the first time, Claire allowed herself to believe the dream might become real. Then, on the morning she was scheduled to sign the purchase agreement, an official letter arrived. Her nursing license had been temporarily suspended. Claire read the notice twice. A complaint accused her of giving an incorrect medication dose to a patient named Harold Mills 2 years earlier. Harold had died several months after Claire stopped caring for him. The complaint had been signed by his daughter. Claire remembered that family clearly. Harold had suffered a severe allergic reaction after another nurse gave him the wrong antibiotic. Claire had recognized the symptoms, called an ambulance, and stayed with him until he reached the hospital. His daughter had sent Claire a thank you card. Now that same woman was accusing her of negligence. Without an active license, Claire could not serve as Bennett House's clinical director. The investment group immediately delayed the loan. By afternoon, the seller announced he would accept another buyer if Claire could not complete the agreement within 10 days. Claire walked alone through the empty building. Dust covered the old reception desk. Plastic sheets hung from the ceiling. In the garden, the maple trees were beginning to show small green leaves. She imagined residents sitting beneath them. Then she imagined the building becoming luxury apartments. Again, Ethan had reached into her life and removed the ground beneath her feet. Claire sat on the floor of what was supposed to become the rehabilitation room. When Dominic arrived, she did not look up. He was right, she said. About what? People like him can erase people like me with one phone call. Dominic sat beside her on the dusty floor. He did not tell her to be strong. He did not promise to buy the building or force the investors to return. He simply remained there. I spent my whole life doing things correctly, Claire whispered. I cared for patients. I paid my bills. I sacrificed for the man I loved, and none of it protected me. Her voice broke. I cannot save my mother, protect Natalie, expose Ethan, and build this place at the same time. You do not have to do everything alone. That is what everyone says before they begin making decisions for me. Dominic looked at her. Then tell me what you need. Claire could no longer hold back the tears. I need someone to stay without taking control. Dominic opened his arms but waited. Claire leaned against him. For the first time since the night at the plaza, she cried without hiding her face. Dominic held her quietly, while sunlight disappeared from the broken windows. Later, he gave her a folder. His investigators had located Harold Mills's daughter, Susan. She had not written the complaint herself. A lawyer representing Vale Senior Living had offered to pay $32,000 in medical debt if she signed prepared documents blaming Claire for her father's treatment. Susan had agreed because her family was close to losing their home. Now, she was willing to tell the licensing board the truth. Claire felt hope return. Did Ethan approve the payment? She asked. Rebecca is tracing it. The following morning, Susan provided a sworn statement, the original thank you card, and medical records proving Claire had saved Harold's life. The licensing board agreed to review the suspension immediately, but when Rebecca traced the payment used to buy Susan's signature, she discovered Ethan's name was nowhere on the authorization. The order had come directly from the Callaway Foundation, and the person who personally approved the payment was Madison, the woman who had claimed Claire was too insignificant to threaten her. Claire's nursing license was restored 6 days later. The review board confirmed that Harold Mills's family had been pressured into filing a false complaint. Susan's sworn statement, medical records, and the original thank you card proved Claire had acted correctly. The decision should have felt like victory. Instead, Claire sat at Natalie's kitchen table, staring at an email from the Bennett House Investment Group. They had not canceled the project. but they were still afraid. Public accusations, a break-in, a car crash, and Claire's connection to Dominic Moretti had made the project look dangerous. The investors wanted additional financial protection before releasing the loan. Without it, the owner would sell the building to someone else within 4 days. Natalie placed a cup of coffee beside her. You cleared your name. That does not mean they trust me. They are afraid of headlines. They are afraid of Dominic. Natalie sat across from her. Are you? Claire did not answer. She knew Dominic had protected her mother, found Susan, and respected her decisions after the crash. She had also seen armed men lower their voices when he entered a room. She knew his family name carried stories people rarely repeated aloud. She trusted the man she had come to know. She did not yet trust the world surrounding him. That afternoon, Dominic asked Claire to meet at Moretti Logistics. Rebecca Sloan was waiting in the conference room with a stack of audited financial reports. Dominic placed a proposal in front of Claire. The Moretti Community Development Fund can guarantee the Bennett house loan. Claire did not touch it. No. Rebecca leaned forward. You should read the terms first. I already know what people will say. Dominic remained calm. They will say many things whether I help or not. They will say I lost one rich man and found a more powerful one. What they say is not the same as what is true. It can still destroy the project. Rebecca opened the first report. The fund is supported by audited revenue from Moretti Logistics, commercial real estate, and warehouse operations. It has no claim over Bennett House's medical decisions. Claire looked at Dominic. And what do you receive? A small return if the project succeeds. That is all? That is all. No ownership of the building? No. No authority over hiring? No. No right to replace me? Dominic shook his head. The fund protects the loan. It does not control you. Claire studied the documents. Ethan had used money to create dependence. Every gift had eventually become a chain. The apartment, her mother's financial assistance, even the blue dress had been used to remind Claire who held the power. Dominic was offering help with limits placed on himself. Claire finally picked up the pen. I want Rebecca to add one more condition. Any disagreement must go through an independent mediator. Dominic nodded. Add it. Rebecca smiled slightly. That is a reasonable demand. Claire signed. 2 days later, the investment group released the funds. Bennett House belonged to the foundation. Work began immediately. Claire spent her mornings meeting contractors and her afternoons reviewing patient care plans. Dominic never entered a meeting unless she invited him. One evening, Claire found him carrying boxes into the future rehabilitation room. You own a logistics company, she said. Surely someone else can move those. They are medical books, not explosives. She stared at him. Dominic gave the faintest smile. That was a joke. I was not sure you made those. Rarely. Claire laughed. The sound echoed through the unfinished room. Over the next several weeks, their time together became less formal. Dominic brought coffee when Claire worked late. She helped him review plans for a health clinic near one of his warehouses. He listened when she spoke. More importantly, he did not punish her when she disagreed. One evening, they visited Frank DeLuca at the Brooklyn Center. Frank was weaker now, but his granddaughter had come from Chicago. Claire watched Dominic stand quietly outside the room so the family could have privacy. You could go in, she said. This moment belongs to them. Claire looked at him differently after that. Later, they walked through the garden behind Bennett House. New lights had been installed along the path, and the old maple trees moved gently in the spring wind. Claire stopped near a wooden bench. Why have you never married? Dominic looked toward the dark windows. I almost did. He told her about a woman named Sophia. They had been engaged when he was 30. One night, a rival group attacked a restaurant because Dominic was expected to be there. Sophia survived, but she never felt safe again. She left New York, Dominic said. I did not blame her. Did you love her? Yes. Do you still? No. But I remember what my life did to her. Claire understood the fear beneath his control. Is that why you kept your distance from me? Partly. What was the other reason? You were with Ethan. Claire lowered her eyes. Dominic continued. I noticed you years ago. You were the only person at his dinner table who asked the servers their names. That is not a reason to fall in love. It was not only that. Claire looked up. He stood close but did not touch her. I do not want gratitude from you, he said. And I do not want revenge against Ethan disguised as affection. What do you want? The truth. Claire's heart beat faster. The truth is that I feel safe with you, she said. And that frightens me. Because of who I am? Because I felt safe with Ethan once. Dominic nodded. If being near me takes away your peace, I will step back. There was no demand in his voice. No threat to withdraw help. No condition tied to Bennett House. Claire realized he was giving her the one thing Ethan never had. A choice. She stepped forward and kissed him. Dominic remained still for 1 second, as if making certain she would not regret it. Then he placed one hand gently against her cheek and kissed her back. It was not a kiss meant for Ethan to see. It was not revenge. It belonged only to them. The next morning, however, photographs of Claire and Dominic appeared online. By noon, Ethan had sent her pictures of Dominic meeting men connected to organized crime. His message read, "You have no idea what kind of man you are trusting." Claire confronted Dominic that evening. He did not deny the photographs. "My family has a criminal past," he said. "Some parts of it are not entirely past." Claire's chest tightened. "Have you lied to me? I have not told you everything." "That is not the same as honesty." Dominic looked ashamed. "I am moving every remaining operation into legal business, but I cannot pretend my hands are clean." Claire left without answering. When she reached the secure apartment, Ethan was waiting beside the door. In his hand was a small velvet ring box. "I made the worst mistake of my life," he said. "Leave Dominic tonight, and I will cancel my wedding to Madison." Then Ethan opened the box and showed Claire the exact engagement ring she had once dreamed of wearing. Claire stared at the ring. It was a 2-carat diamond in a simple Tiffany setting, exactly the style she had once saved on her phone. For years she had imagined Ethan placing it on her hand in a quiet room, promising to build a life with her. Now he stood outside the apartment where she had been hiding from threats connected to his company. "You bought that for me?" she asked. 3 years ago." "Then why did you never give it to me?" Ethan closed the velvet box. "I was afraid." Claire almost laughed. "Of marrying a nurse?" "Of making the wrong decision for the company." He spoke softly, without the coldness he had shown at the plaza. His tie was loose, and dark circles showed beneath his eyes. For a moment, he looked like the man who had once shared takeout food with her in a small apartment while planning his future on a borrowed laptop. "I have been thinking about everything we lost," he said. "The Sunday mornings, your father's old records, the house we wanted near the river." Claire's chest tightened. Ethan knew exactly which memories would hurt her most. "I am engaged to Madison," he continued, "but I do not love her. You humiliated me for her. I made a business decision. Then I saw you with Dominic, and understood what I had thrown away." Claire looked at the ring again. "You did not miss me until another man valued me." "That is not true." "Then why are you here now?" Ethan hesitated. Claire noticed it. "I want to show you something," he said. She should have refused. Instead, she agreed to meet him the following afternoon, but only after sending the address to Rebecca and activating the recording function on her iPhone. Ethan drove her north to Hudson Valley. The house stood at the end of a quiet road overlooking the river. It had white walls, a wide porch, and a small garden behind the kitchen. Claire recognized it immediately. They had visited the property 4 years earlier, when Ethan promised they would buy it after the next expansion of Vale Senior Living. Inside, the rooms were empty except for a table covered with old floor plans. Claire saw her own handwriting on the pages. A reading corner for her mother. A ground floor bedroom for Eleanor. A garden where Claire had planned to grow tomatoes. "You kept these?" she asked. "I kept everything." Ethan opened a folder. "The house can be transferred to your name this week. I will also restore your mother's assistance and cover the remaining costs for Bennett House." Claire looked at him. "What do you want in return?" His voice remained gentle. "Come home." "There is no home. We can create one." "And Madison?" "I will end the engagement." "Dominic?" "You stop seeing him." Claire stepped away from the table. "There it is." "What?" "The condition." "Claire, Dominic is dangerous. So is the man whose employees broke into my friend's apartment. I did not order that. My brakes were cut." Ethan's face changed. Only for a second. But Claire saw genuine surprise. "You think I tried to kill you?" "A tracking device came from Vale Security. I would never hurt you." "You already did." Ethan moved closer. "I am trying to fix it." "No. You are trying to regain control." He opened another document. It was a confidentiality agreement. Claire read the first page. She would receive the house, financial support for Margaret, and $5 million for Bennett House. In exchange, she had to surrender all documents connected to Vale Senior Living and agree never to testify against the company. Claire finally understood. The ring was not an apology. The house was not love. They were payment. "If I had no documents," she asked, "would you still be standing here?" Ethan looked toward the window. "That is not the point. It is the only point." He placed both hands on the table. "Those files could destroy thousands of jobs. The missing money already destroyed lives. You do not understand how companies survive." "I understand how patients suffer." Ethan's patience disappeared. "Give me the hard drive." Claire's phone continued recording inside her coat pocket. "I do not have it." "Then tell me where it is." "No." He stepped closer. "If federal investigators see those records, Vale Senior Living may collapse. Your precious Bennett house will become part of the scandal. Every donor will know it was built with Moretti money." "Are you threatening me?" "I am warning you." Claire turned toward the door. Ethan grabbed her wrist. Her iPhone slipped from her pocket and struck the floor. The screen remained lit. The recording timer was visible. Ethan released her and picked up the phone. "You recorded me." Claire moved toward the door. Ethan blocked her path. "You came here to trap me. You brought me here to buy my silence." His expression became colder than she had ever seen it. Delete the recording. No. He reached for her again. A car door slammed outside. Dominic appeared through the front window, followed by 2 security officers. Ethan stepped back. Dominic entered, but did not touch him. His eyes went directly to Claire. Are you hurt? No. Dominic looked at Ethan. Claire stood between them. No threats, she told Dominic. No violence. Dominic's hands slowly relaxed. This is your decision, he said. Claire took her phone from Ethan and walked outside. In the car, Dominic's anger finally surfaced. You went there alone. I sent Rebecca the address. He could have killed you. I needed him to speak freely. You risked your life for evidence. Claire turned toward him. And now you are deciding what I was allowed to risk. Dominic became silent. Claire's voice softened. I will not leave one controlling man only to be protected by another. The words wounded him, but he did not defend himself. You are right, he said. I was afraid, and I turned that fear into control. It was the first apology Claire had received that did not contain an excuse. Rebecca later confirmed the recording could support a request for whistleblower protection. Ethan had admitted knowledge of the documents and attempted to obtain them through financial pressure, but he had not confessed to ordering the thefts or moving the money. That night, Madison listened to a report from the investigator who had followed Claire to Hudson Valley. She now knew Ethan was willing to abandon her. She called Vincent Russo, a senior manager inside Moretti Logistics who secretly owed money to dangerous men. Madison offered to clear every debt if he stole Eleanor's hard drive. Hours later, a guard outside Claire's secure apartment was found unconscious. The backup drive was missing. When Rebecca checked the security system, she discovered the door had been opened with an access code issued from inside Dominic's own organization. Dominic locked down every entrance to Moretti Logistics before sunrise. No employee could leave without being questioned. Security records were copied, access cards were suspended, and every person who had entered Claire's apartment building during the previous 24 hours was identified. Claire sat in the conference room beside Rebecca. The stolen backup drive contained copies of Eleanor's files, but it was not the only copy. Rebecca had already placed the original evidence in a secure legal archive. Still, the break-in proved something more dangerous. Someone close to Dominic had betrayed him. Vincent Russo arrived at 8:30. He was 46, neatly dressed, and had worked for the Moretti family for nearly 20 years. He supervised warehouse security and knew the access codes for every corporate property. Dominic placed a photograph on the table. It showed Vincent entering Claire's building shortly before the guard was attacked. Vincent glanced at the picture but said nothing. Where's the drive? Dominic asked. I do not know. The code came from your account. My account was hacked. Dominic leaned forward. Men outside the room became silent. Claire watched his expression change. This was the Dominic people feared. His voice remained controlled, but the anger beneath it filled the room. You gave my protection code to someone who entered her home, he said. You placed Claire in danger. Vincent looked toward the door. I made a mistake. Who paid you? Vincent continued to deny everything. Dominic stood. Claire touched his arm. No violence. He looked down at her hand. For several seconds, he struggled between instinct and promise. Then he sat again. Rebecca opened a folder. We traced 3 recent payments into an account connected to your brother-in-law, she said. The money came from the Callaway Foundation. Vincent's face lost color. Rebecca continued. We also know about your gambling debts. My family had nothing to do with this. Then help us protect them, Claire said. Vincent looked at her for the first time. Claire saw fear, shame, and exhaustion. They said no one would be hurt, he whispered. Who said that? Rebecca asked. Madison. Dominic's jaw tightened. Vincent explained that Madison had contacted him through an intermediary. She promised to clear his debts if he stole the drive and delivered it to a private office near Central Park. Did Ethan know? Claire asked. I never spoke to Ethan. Where is the drive now? I gave it to Madison's assistant last night. Rebecca immediately called federal investigators who had begun reviewing the first set of records. They requested an emergency meeting. Claire expected Dominic to punish Vincent after the confession. Instead, he ordered security to keep him in the building until police arrived. You are turning him over? Claire asked quietly. He endangered you. So you are letting the law handle it? Dominic looked toward Vincent. I gave you my word. It was not easy for him. That made it matter more. By noon, news of Vincent's arrest reached Ethan. He confronted Madison inside their penthouse. You hired someone from Moretti's organization? Madison stood near the marble fireplace, holding a glass of wine. I protected our future. You created evidence linking your foundation to a break-in. You were too busy begging Claire to come back. Ethan stepped closer. You had no right to act without me. Madison laughed bitterly. No, right? My father's donors saved your company after your failed development nearly destroyed it. That was a temporary loss. You stole from elderly residents to cover it. Ethan's face hardened. Madison lowered her voice. You told me the transfers were legal. I told you not to ask questions. And now, Claire has everything. She does not have the drive. Madison lifted her phone. She has copies. Rebecca Sloane would never keep only one. Ethan turned away. For the first time, Madison understood that he had no real plan. His confidence had always depended on everyone around him remaining frightened or loyal. Now Eleanor had turned against him. Dominic had turned against him. Claire no longer loved him. And Madison herself had become evidence. That evening, Claire visited her mother. Margaret had been moved to a clean, private room in a non-profit facility outside the city. Fresh flowers sat beside the window, and the staff knew Claire by name. Margaret reached for her hand. "You look tired." "I am. But not broken." Claire smiled. "No, not broken." Her mother studied her carefully. "Do you love Dominic?" Claire looked toward the hallway where he waited, giving them privacy. "I think I am beginning to." "Does he respect you?" "Yes." "Then do not punish him for the sins of the man before him." Claire held her mother's hand more tightly. "I am afraid of trusting the wrong person again." "Trust is not blindness," Margaret said. "It is seeing the truth and choosing with open eyes." Later, Claire found Dominic near the nurse's station. "I need to know everything," she said. "About my family?" "About you." Dominic did not avoid her eyes. He took Claire to his apartment overlooking Manhattan. For 2 hours, he told her the truth. His father had controlled illegal gambling and protection operations. Dominic inherited them at 28. He had ordered threats, destroyed businesses, and allowed violent men to act in his name. He had never killed anyone himself, but he did not pretend that made him innocent. Over the past 7 years, he had closed most illegal operations and moved the organization into shipping, warehouses, construction, and real estate. "Why?" Claire asked. "Because Frank's granddaughter once asked me what kind of work her grandfather had done for my family. I realized I could not answer without lying to a child." Claire sat quietly. "Are the illegal operations finished?" "Not all of them." "Will they be?" "Yes." "How long?" 1 year. Claire shook her head. "That is not enough." Dominic waited. "Close them now," she said. "Not for me. Because they are wrong. It may create enemies." "You already have enemies." "It may cost millions. Then lose millions." Dominic looked at her for a long time. Finally, he called his attorney and chief financial officer. "Begin the final shutdown," he said. "Every remaining operation. Tonight." After the calls, Claire stepped closer. "I am not asking you to become a different man for me. You are asking me to become the man I should have been." She kissed him gently. The following morning, Rebecca received a package without a return address. Inside was the stolen hard drive. There was also a printed invitation to the Vale Senior Living Anniversary Gala at the Ritz-Carlton. A handwritten message appeared beneath Ethan's name. "Come to the gala, and I will confess everything." Claire immediately recognized the handwriting. It was not Ethan's. The invitation had been written by Eleanor, and beneath it, she had added one final warning. "Madison plans to destroy every witness before the night is over." The Ritz-Carlton ballroom looked almost identical to the night Claire's life had fallen apart. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, champagne glasses lined on silver trays. Powerful people smiling as if money had protected them from every consequence. But Claire was no longer standing beside Ethan, waiting to be chosen. She entered the gala wearing a simple black dress and Eleanor's pearl earrings. Dominic walked beside her in a dark tuxedo, but he did not hold her arm until she reached for his. Rebecca followed with 2 federal investigators posing as corporate attorneys. Claire's heart beat hard. "Remember," Rebecca whispered, "we need Ethan or Madison to confirm the financial transfers. Do not accuse them too early. And if they try to leave, the investigators will handle it." Dominic looked toward Claire. "You can still walk away." "No, you do not have to prove anything to these people. I am not here for them." Claire looked across the ballroom at several nurses and nursing home employees invited for the anniversary celebration. "I am here for the people whose money was stolen." At the center of the room, Ethan greeted investors beneath a large gold sign celebrating 25 years of Vale Senior Living. Madison stood beside him in a red designer gown. Her smile vanished when she saw Claire. Ethan's expression was harder to read. He excused himself from a group of board members and approached. "You came. Your mother invited me." "My mother is confused." Eleanor's voice came from behind him. "No, Ethan. I am finally clear." The crowd turned. Eleanor entered in a wheelchair pushed by Walter, her longtime driver. A doctor from her new medical team walked beside her. Ethan's face became pale. "You should be resting." "I rested while you used my name to steal from frightened families." A few nearby guests stopped speaking. Madison quickly stepped forward. "This is not the place for private family matters." Eleanor looked at her. "You made it public when your foundation paid a grieving daughter to destroy Claire's nursing license." Madison's smile disappeared. Ethan leaned toward his mother. "You do not understand the documents you saw." "I understood enough to make copies." Claire watched fear move across his face. Then the ballroom lights dimmed. A large screen behind the stage displayed the Vale Senior Living logo. Ethan straightened. He seemed relieved to continue the planned program. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, We are here tonight to celebrate the future of elderly care. Claire almost could not believe the cruelty of those words. A video began showing beautiful facilities, smiling residents, and nurses holding hands with elderly patients. None of the people shown knew that assistance funds had been taken from families like theirs. Claire moved toward the stage. Madison blocked her. "You are making a mistake," she whispered. "You already made yours." Madison's eyes narrowed. "You think Dominic will protect you forever? His legal businesses are already losing money because of you. He chose to close criminal operations. And what happens when his enemies decide you are the reason?" Claire felt fear, but she did not step back. "That is between Dominic and me." "No," Madison said. "It becomes everyone's problem when a nurse believes she can enter rooms built for powerful families." Claire looked at the guests around them. Several people had heard. Madison realized it too late. Rebecca had placed Claire's phone inside her evening bag with the microphone active. The entire conversation was being recorded. When the video ended, Ethan returned to the microphone. He thanked investors, praised Madison's charitable work, and announced a new partnership with the Callaway Foundation. Then Eleanor raised her hand. "Before you celebrate," she said loudly, "ask my son what happened to $18 million in patient assistance funds." The ballroom fell silent. Ethan smiled carefully. "My mother has been suffering from medical confusion since her stroke." The doctor beside Eleanor stepped forward. "Mrs. Vale completed a full cognitive assessment yesterday. She is mentally capable of understanding financial records and giving testimony." Ethan's smile weakened. Claire climbed the stage. He turned toward her. "Do not do this." She took the second microphone. "For 6 years I cared for this family. I stayed quiet when I was treated like an employee inside the home I helped hold together." Guests began raising their phones. Claire continued, "I am not here because Ethan refused to marry me. I am here because residents lost care while money was moved through companies created to hide the truth." Ethan reached for her microphone. Dominic stepped forward, but Claire raised one hand. She did not need him to fight this battle. Rebecca signaled to the technician. The screen changed. Bank transfers appeared. North Harbor Consulting, Callaway Foundation, luxury development accounts, electronic approvals carrying Eleanor's stolen signature. Ethan looked toward the exits. 2 federal investigators moved closer. "This evidence was stolen," he said. Rebecca walked onto the stage. "The original records were legally provided by Ethan Vale, a board member and account owner." Madison turned toward Ethan. "You said the files could not be used." Her voice carried through Claire's open microphone. Ethan glared at her. "Be quiet. You promised my father no one could trace the campaign payments." The room erupted in whispers. Madison froze. She had just confirmed the connection herself. Ethan grabbed her arm. "You approved the payments to Susan Mills." "Because you told me Claire would destroy us." Flashbulbs filled the ballroom. Reporters rushed toward the stage. Ethan released Madison and faced the crowd. "This company employs thousands of people. Any financial transfers were made to protect Vale Senior Living during a temporary crisis." Claire looked directly at him. "You protected your company by taking medicine, housing, and dignity from people who trusted you. You have no idea what leadership requires." "I know what care requires." Eleanor held up a signed board resolution. "As the company's largest individual shareholder, I requested an emergency vote this afternoon." Ethan stared at the document. "The board has suspended you as chief executive officer," Eleanor said. Security officers moved toward him. For the first time, Ethan looked completely powerless. He turned to Claire. "I gave you everything." Claire shook her head. "You gave me reasons to forget my worth." Federal investigators escorted Ethan and Madison into separate rooms for questioning. The ballroom remained in chaos. Dominic approached Claire slowly. "You did not need me." Claire took his hand. "I never wanted to need you. I wanted to choose you." Before Dominic could answer, Rebecca received a message on her phone. Her expression changed. The investigators had found one more transfer hidden inside North Harbor's records. It was not connected to Ethan. It had been authorized 7 years earlier under the name Moretti Logistics. Claire looked at Dominic. He stared at the document without speaking. The evidence that could save Bennett House now appeared to prove that Dominic's own company had helped create Ethan's first secret account. The ballroom seemed to disappear around Claire. All she could see was the transfer on Rebecca's screen. 7 years earlier. Moretti Logistics. North Harbor Consulting. $2 million. Claire looked at Dominic. "Did you know?" He did not answer immediately. That silence hurt more than denial. Rebecca stepped between them and lowered her voice. "We should not discuss this here." Claire kept her eyes on Dominic. "Did your company send the money?" "Yes." The word struck her like another crash. Reporters were still shouting questions near the stage. Ethan and Madison had been taken into separate conference rooms. Eleanor sat surrounded by board members and federal investigators. Yet Claire felt completely alone. "What was the payment for?" she asked. Dominic glanced toward the crowd. "A shipping contract. With a company you said you did not know?" "I did not know North Harbor by that name." Claire's chest tightened. "That is not an answer." Dominic nodded toward a private hallway. Then let me give you the full one. Inside a small executive lounge, Rebecca locked the door. One federal investigator remained with them. Dominic stood near the window. 7 years earlier, Moretti Logistics had faced a strike at one of its New Jersey ports. A group connected to Ethan offered to arrange replacement workers and keep shipments moving. The contract came through another company, Dominic said. I approved the payment. Was the work legal? Claire asked. No. Rebecca's expression hardened. What exactly did they do? They threatened union leaders. One man was beaten. Claire stepped back. Did you order that? I authorized men who I knew used fear. I did not ask for details because I wanted the port open. That means you chose not to know. Yes. Dominic did not hide behind excuses. The investigator asked whether Ethan had been involved. Dominic explained that Ethan was still expanding Vale Senior Living at the time. He had introduced the middleman and requested a private loan shortly afterward. I believe the two matters were separate, Dominic said. Now I think Ethan used part of the money to create North Harbor. Claire remembered Ethan's claim that Dominic's hands were not clean. This time, Ethan had told the truth. You let me investigate North Harbor while knowing your company had paid money connected to it. I did not recognize the name until tonight. But you knew Ethan once arranged illegal work for you. Yes. And you never told me? Dominic looked at her. I was ashamed. Claire laughed once, without humor. So you decided I did not deserve the truth? I was afraid you would leave. That is exactly what Ethan said whenever he hid something. The comparison wounded him. He did not argue. Rebecca asked Dominic whether records of the old contract still existed. They should be in our archived legal files. If you provide them, the investigator said, you may be exposing yourself to criminal charges. Dominic turned toward Claire. I will provide everything. This is not a romantic gesture, Claire said. Do not confess because you think it will make me stay. I am not. Then why? Because the truth cannot belong only to the people I want punished. The room became silent. For the first time that night, Claire saw no mafia boss, no wealthy chairman, and no protector. She saw a man facing the person he had once been. Rebecca arranged for Dominic's attorneys to deliver the archived files before morning. The investigator warned him not to contact any former employees connected to the port incident. Dominic agreed. When they returned to the ballroom, Ethan was being escorted through the side entrance. He saw Claire standing several feet away from Dominic. A bitter smile appeared on his face. You finally found out, Ethan said. Claire walked toward him. You knew about the payment. I built North Harbor with Moretti money. Dominic's expression became cold. Ethan laughed. You thought you were better than me, Dominic, but your first dirty payment gave me the account I used for everything. Claire looked at Ethan. You stole from Patience, and he helped me become powerful enough to do it. Dominic stepped forward. Claire raised her hand. No. She refused to let either man turn the truth into another contest over her. Ethan was taken away. Outside the hotel, cameras filled the sidewalk. Claire left through a private exit with Rebecca. Dominic followed, but stopped several feet away. I will not ask you to forgive me, he said. Good. I will cooperate fully. You should. And Bennett House will remain protected. The guarantee is legally separate from me. Claire looked at him. Do not use the project to keep a place in my life. I will not. His voice broke slightly. Claire had never heard that before. She wanted to remember the man who sat beside her on a dusty floor and let her cry. But she also remembered the union leader who had been beaten because Dominic wanted a port reopened. I need distance, she said. Dominic nodded. You will have it. He entered a waiting Mercedes and left without looking back. Over the next week, the scandal spread across every major news outlet. Vale Senior Living's board appointed an emergency management team. Patient assistance funds were frozen and placed under court supervision. Eleanor announced that no facility would close during the investigation. Bennett House continued construction. But Claire worked without Dominic. She attended meetings, approved equipment orders, and visited her mother. At night, she lay awake wondering whether love could survive complete honesty. Then Rebecca called. Federal investigators had reviewed Dominic's archived files. The payment was real. The illegal contract was real. But one detail changed everything. Dominic had ordered the port operation stopped immediately after learning a union leader had been injured. He had also paid the man's medical costs anonymously and closed the security division responsible. He still made the first decision, Claire said. Yes, Rebecca replied. But Ethan removed one document from the records he showed us. What document? A second transfer. The money that created North Harbor had not come entirely from Moretti Logistics. Half had come from a private trust controlled by Senator Calloway. Claire looked toward the television, where Madison's father was denying any knowledge of the scandal. Rebecca continued. There is more. The trust authorization carries a witness signature. Whose? Rebecca sent the document. Claire opened it. The witness was someone she knew. Someone who had been beside Ethan long before Madison entered his life. At the bottom of the transfer was Eleanor Vale's signature, but this time, Claire knew with absolute certainty that it was real. Claire drove to Eleanor's temporary home in Greenwich before sunrise. Rebecca came with her, carrying the transfer document inside a sealed folder. Eleanor sat in the library beneath an old family portrait. She looked smaller than usual, wrapped in a gray robe with untouched tea beside her. Claire placed the document on the table. "Is this your signature?" Eleanor looked at it once. "Yes." Rebecca sat across from her. "You witnessed a transfer from Senator Calloway's private trust into the account that later became North Harbor Consulting." "I did." Claire felt disappointment tighten around her heart. "You told me you had never heard of North Harbor." "That was true. It did not have that name when I signed." "But you knew money was being moved." Eleanor closed her eyes. 7 years earlier, Vale Senior Living had been close to bankruptcy. Ethan had expanded too quickly, purchasing 3 failing care facilities and promising investors profits he could not deliver. Banks refused another loan. Thousands of residents and employees were at risk. Ethan came to Eleanor with Senator Calloway and Dominic. Dominic believed he was paying for port security, Eleanor explained. The senator called his contribution a private emergency investment. "And Ethan?" Rebecca asked. "He said the money would keep Vale open until we could sell 2 properties. Claire pointed toward the document. "Why does it lead to a hidden account?" I asked the same question. Eleanor explained that Ethan claimed secrecy was necessary because public knowledge of the company's financial condition would cause investors to panic. She signed as a witness because she believed the money would protect residents. 3 months later, Vale recovered. But Ethan did not close the account. He began moving smaller payments through it. "At first, I thought they were legal consulting expenses," Eleanor said. "Then I discovered he was paying political favors, hiding development losses, and rewarding directors who stayed silent." "Why did you not report him?" Claire asked. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "He was my son." The words hung heavily in the room. "I told myself I was protecting the company," she continued. "The truth is that I was protecting him." Claire thought of every family that had lost assistance. "You allowed it to continue." "Yes." Eleanor did not defend herself. "I threatened to expose him several times. Each time, Ethan promised it was over. Then he reminded me that a public scandal might close facilities and leave residents without care." Rebecca's voice remained firm. "You understand that your silence may carry legal consequences." "I do. Are you willing to testify?" Eleanor looked toward Claire. "I should have done it years ago." Claire felt anger, but she also saw an elderly mother who had confused love with protection until both became dangerous. "Why invite me to the gala?" Claire asked. "Because you were the one person Ethan could not buy forever." Eleanor admitted she had followed Claire's life more closely than anyone knew. She knew about Bennett House, Margaret's treatment, and the false complaint against Claire's license. "When Ethan rejected you publicly, I finally understood," Eleanor said. "He did not love people. He valued what they could provide." Claire sat beside her. "You loved him." "I still do." "Then testifying will hurt." "Yes." Eleanor reached for Claire's hand. "But love without truth becomes permission." Rebecca recorded a full statement. Eleanor provided the location of handwritten journals documenting years of conversations with Ethan, Senator Calloway, and several Vale directors. The journals were hidden inside a bank deposit box under Walter's name. By afternoon, federal investigators had obtained them. The entries confirmed that Senator Calloway knew about North Harbor and used it to move campaign money. They also showed Ethan had expanded the scheme after Vale recovered. Dominic's original payment had helped create the account, but the records proved he had never approved its later use. That did not erase his past. Claire knew that. But it meant he had not knowingly helped Ethan steal from elderly residents. Later, Claire found Dominic outside Bennett House. He stood across the street, watching workers install new windows. He had kept his promise and stayed away from her, but he still received construction reports because the Moretti Fund guaranteed the loan. Claire walked toward him. "You could have come inside." "You asked for distance." "I did." Dominic nodded. "How is Eleanor?" She confessed. He looked down. "And the transfer?" "You approved illegal work. Ethan used part of that payment to create North Harbor without telling you. That does not remove my responsibility." "No." Dominic met her eyes. Claire appreciated that he did not ask whether she forgave him. "I spoke to the union leader," Dominic said. Claire was surprised. "The investigators allowed it?" "Through my attorney. His name is Michael Torres. I apologized without asking him to protect me." "What did he say?" "That money paid his hospital bills, but it did not return the years he spent afraid." Dominic's voice was low. "He was right." Claire stepped closer. "What happens now?" "I testify. I accept whatever follows." "And your businesses?" "The remaining illegal operations are closed. Several men left. Others are angry." "Are you in danger?" "Yes." Claire felt fear, but she did not move away. "I cannot promise that I am ready to forget everything. I do not want you to forget. But I believe you are changing." Dominic looked at her carefully. "Does that mean there is still a future for us?" "It means there may be one if we build it honestly." He reached for her hand, then stopped before touching it. Claire closed the distance herself. They stood quietly outside Bennett House as workers carried new furniture through the entrance. For the first time, their relationship did not depend on rescue, fear, or revenge. It depended on truth. That evening, Rebecca called with urgent news. Senator Calloway had learned about Eleanor's journals. He had scheduled a national press conference for the following morning and planned to blame the entire scheme on Ethan, Madison, and Dominic. But one journal entry could destroy his story. It described a private meeting held 7 years earlier. 4 people had attended: Ethan, Eleanor, Senator Calloway, and a 4th person whose name Claire had never seen before. That person was Claire's late father, and the journal claimed he had died because he refused to join their plan. Claire read the journal entry 3 times. Her father's name was written clearly: Thomas Bennett. The man, she had been told, died from a heart attack after years of stress. The man whose old record still sat in a box beneath Natalie's bed. Rebecca stood beside her in the Bennett house office. "Did your father ever work with Vale Senior Living?" she asked. "Not directly. He was an accountant for a small medical supply company." Claire remembered him coming home late, carrying folders he never discussed. She had been 16 when he died. Her mother had said he collapsed in a parking garage after work. Eleanor's journal told a different story. Thomas had discovered unusual payments involving medical suppliers, Vale Senior Living, and Senator Calloway's private trust. He believed money was being hidden through false equipment orders. According to the journal, Ethan and the senator asked Thomas to approve altered financial reports. He refused. 3 days later, he was dead. Claire felt the room tilt. "Does this prove they killed him?" she asked. "No," Rebecca said. "It proves motive and timing. We need more." Claire drove immediately to her mother's facility. Margaret was sitting near the window with a blanket over her knees. When Claire placed the journal copy on the table, her mother's face changed. "You knew," Claire whispered. Margaret looked down. "I knew he was frightened." "What happened?" Her mother began to cry. Thomas had discovered that the medical supply company was billing Vale facilities for equipment never delivered. The extra money was sent to accounts controlled by people connected to Senator Calloway. Thomas copied the records. "He said he was going to the police," Margaret explained. "Then Ethan came to our house." Claire's chest tightened. "Ethan knew my father?" "He came with another man. They told your father that exposing the payments would close nursing homes and put thousands of people out of work." "What did Dad say?" "That innocent residents were already paying for their crimes." Margaret wiped her eyes. "The night before Thomas died, he hid a file and told her to protect Claire if anything happened." "Where is it?" Claire asked. "I never found it." "Why did you tell me he had a heart attack?" "Because a man called after the funeral. He knew your school, your bus route, and where you spent weekends." Margaret reached for Claire's hand. "I was afraid they would hurt you too." Claire stood and walked toward the window. For years, she had believed her mother's silence came from weakness. Now she understood it had come from terror. "Did Ethan know who I was when we met?" Claire asked. Margaret shook her head. "I do not know." That question followed Claire back to Natalie's apartment. She opened the old box containing her father's belongings. Tax returns, family photographs, a broken Timex watch, several jazz records. Claire remembered Ethan once helping her move that box after they began living together. He had spent nearly an hour looking through Thomas's records. At the time, she thought he wanted to know her family. Now she wondered whether he had been searching for evidence. Claire examined every folder. Nothing. Then she noticed the cardboard beneath the records was thicker than it should have been. She cut along the edge. Inside was a sealed envelope. Thomas Bennett had written Claire's name on the front. Her hands shook as she opened it. The letter was short. "Claire, if you are reading this, I failed to protect the truth. Do not trust anyone who tells you silence protects innocent people. Silence protects the powerful." Beneath the letter was a small key and the address of a storage facility in Queens. Rebecca called federal investigators. They all met at the facility that evening. The key opened a metal storage box rented under Thomas Bennett's middle name. Inside were paper invoices, cassette recordings, and photographs taken outside private meetings. One photograph showed Ethan, Senator Calloway, Eleanor, and Thomas entering a Manhattan office. Another showed Ethan meeting the owner of the false medical supply company. But the most important evidence was an old cassette labeled March 18. Rebecca found a player in the facility office. Thomas's voice filled the small room. He described the false invoices and named everyone involved. Then another voice interrupted the recording. "Senator Calloway, you have a daughter," he said. "Think carefully before you destroy her future." Thomas answered calmly, "My daughter's future means nothing if men like you are allowed to steal from people who cannot defend themselves." The tape ended with the sound of a door opening. Claire could barely breathe. Dominic stood several feet away, giving her space. Rebecca placed the cassette in an evidence bag. "This changes the investigation," she said. "The senator's press conference is tomorrow morning. We can stop him before he controls the story." Claire looked at her father's letter. For 16 years, his death had been treated as an unfortunate medical tragedy. Now she knew it had been part of the same fear that controlled Eleanor, Margaret, and countless families. The next morning, Senator Calloway stood before national cameras and denied every accusation. He blamed Ethan. He blamed Madison. He blamed Dominic's criminal history. Then Claire entered the room with Rebecca and 2 federal investigators. The senator stopped speaking. Claire placed her father's cassette on the table. "My father tried to expose you 7 years ago," she said. "Today, he finally will." Calloway stared at the tape. For the first time, the powerful senator looked frightened. Federal agents moved toward him. Before they reached the stage, he leaned toward the microphone. "Thomas Bennett's death was not supposed to happen," he said. The room erupted. Claire felt Dominic step closer but not touch her. Senator Calloway continued. "I only ordered them to frighten him." Claire's voice became cold. "Who is them?" The senator looked toward Ethan's attorney standing near the back wall. Then he named the man who had followed Thomas into the parking garage, and it was Aaron Pike's father, the former head of Vale Security. The press room exploded with questions. Senator Calloway was surrounded by federal agents before he could leave the stage. Cameras followed every movement as reporters shouted about Thomas Bennett, Vale Security, and the hidden payments. Claire stood still. Aaron Pike's father had been dead for 3 years. His name was Robert Pike. For nearly 2 decades, he had served as Vale Senior Living's head of security. Official records described him as loyal, disciplined, and trusted by the Vale family. Now the senator claimed Robert had followed Thomas into the parking garage. Rebecca guided Claire into a private office. Dominic entered behind them. "What happens now?" Claire asked. Rebecca placed several documents on the desk. "Investigators will reopen your father's death. They will also question Aaron Pike about anything his father told him." "Can Aaron be found?" "He was arrested this morning near the Canadian border." Claire looked up sharply. Rebecca explained that Aaron had carried a phone containing messages from Madison's assistant and an old voice recording made by his father. The recording had been hidden inside a family safe. Aaron offered it in exchange for legal protection. Federal investigators played the file that afternoon. Robert Pike's voice was rough and frightened. He said Senator Calloway had ordered him to scare Thomas into silence. Ethan had provided Thomas's work schedule and the location of the parking garage. Robert confronted Thomas near his car. An argument followed. Thomas tried to call the police. Robert struck him. Thomas fell backward and hit his head against a concrete barrier. He was still alive. Robert wanted to call an ambulance. Then Ethan arrived. Claire stopped breathing. On the recording, Robert said Ethan checked Thomas's pulse, took the folder from his car, and told Robert to leave. "What happened after that?" Claire whispered. Rebecca's eyes lowered. Ethan waited nearly 40 minutes before calling emergency services. The medical examiner's original report stated that Thomas had suffered internal bleeding after the fall. If help had arrived sooner, he might have survived. Claire pressed both hands against the table. Ethan had not planned her father's death, but he had chosen evidence over a dying man. Dominic moved closer. Claire did not ask him to step back. "He knew who I was," she said. Rebecca nodded, most likely from the beginning. Claire remembered the first time Ethan approached her at a hospital fundraiser. He had praised her kindness and asked about her family. She had believed it was interest. Now she understood. He had entered her life to find what Thomas had hidden. 6 years of love had begun as an investigation. The truth hurt more than the public rejection. That evening, Claire requested a meeting with Ethan at the Federal Detention Center. Rebecca advised her not to go. Dominic wanted to accompany her. Claire refused both. "This is something I have to face alone." Ethan entered the interview room wearing a plain gray uniform. Without his tailored suit and expensive watch, he looked smaller. Claire sat across from him behind a glass partition. "Did you know who I was when we met?" she asked. Ethan did not answer. Claire waited. Finally, he looked down. "Yes." The word broke the last false memory between them. "You approached me because of my father. I needed to know whether he left documents with your family. And when you found nothing, I stayed." "Why?" Ethan looked at her. "Because I loved you." Claire felt tears rise, but her voice remained steady. "You do not know what love is. I protected you. You studied me. I gave you a home. You gave me a place where you could watch me." His face tightened. "It stopped being about the documents years ago." "Then why did you humiliate me at the plaza?" "Because Madison's family could save the company, and I could not." Ethan leaned closer to the glass. "You could have had everything if you had stayed quiet. My father died because you believed silence was more valuable than his life. I did not push him. You watched him die." Ethan looked away. Claire continued. "You waited 40 minutes because you were searching his car." His silence was confession enough. For years, Claire had imagined this moment filled with anger. Instead, she felt something quieter. The love she once had for Ethan was gone, not buried, not waiting to return. Gone. "I came here because I needed to hear the truth from you," she said. "Now I have. Claire, please." She stood. "My father lost his life because he refused to become like you. I will honor him by doing the same." Ethan pressed one hand against the glass. Dominic is no better. He admitted what he did and accepted the consequences. He will go to prison too. Maybe. Claire held Ethan's gaze. But he never pretended his crimes were love. She left without looking back. Outside, Dominic waited near a black Mercedes. He did not ask what Ethan had said. Claire walked directly into his arms. Dominic held her carefully. My father knew the truth would cost him everything, she whispered. He still chose it. He was a brave man. I spent years thinking he left us. He did not leave you. Claire looked toward the city lights. No. He gave me a reason to stand. Over the next month, federal charges were filed against Ethan, Senator Calloway, Madison, Aaron Pike, and several former Vale executives. Eleanor pleaded guilty to failing to report financial crimes and agreed to testify against her son. Dominic also entered a formal agreement with prosecutors. He admitted authorizing the illegal port operation and provided records exposing several criminal networks. He faced possible prison time. Claire never asked Rebecca to protect him from the consequences. Bennett House was scheduled to open in 6 weeks. The building had bright patient rooms, a therapy center, and a garden dedicated to Thomas Bennett. Claire's mother attended the final inspection in a wheelchair. You built something beautiful, Margaret said. We built it from the truth. That night, Dominic received a call from his attorney. A court hearing had been scheduled for the following morning. Claire found him standing alone in the Bennett House garden. How long? She asked. I do not know. Could they send you away? Yes. Claire took his hand. I will not promise that consequences do not matter. I would not ask you to, but I will be there. Dominic looked at her with quiet gratitude. The next morning, the courtroom was filled with reporters. The judge reviewed Dominic's cooperation, the shutdown of his illegal operations, and his role in exposing the Vale scheme. Then she looked directly at him. Before announcing the sentence, the judge revealed that one final witness had requested permission to speak, and Michael Torres, the union leader Dominic once harmed, entered the courtroom. Michael Torres walked slowly toward the witness stand. The courtroom became silent. Claire watched Dominic's face. He looked surprised, but he did not look afraid. Michael raised his right hand and promised to tell the truth. The judge studied him. Mr. Torres, you were injured during the illegal port operation authorized by Mr. Moretti. Why have you asked to speak? Michael looked toward Dominic. For years, I hated that man. Dominic lowered his eyes. Michael explained that he had been a union representative when Moretti Logistics hired men to frighten workers into ending a strike. One of those men attacked him outside his home. My shoulder never healed correctly, Michael said. My wife left New Jersey because she was afraid they would return. The judge listened carefully. Are you asking the court for the maximum sentence? No. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Michael continued. I am not here to excuse him. What he did was wrong. But after the attack, someone paid my hospital bills anonymously. Last month, Mr. Moretti admitted it was him. Dominic looked up. He apologized without asking me to forgive him, Michael said. He closed the businesses connected to the violence. He gave investigators names, records, and accounts that powerful men spent years hiding. Michael turned toward the judge. Punish him. But do not pretend a man who admits the truth is the same as a man who destroys evidence and watches an injured person die. Claire felt tears in her eyes. The judge thanked Michael and reviewed Dominic's case again. Dominic had admitted his crimes before being charged. He had ended every illegal operation under his control. He had surrendered millions in unlawful profits. He had helped authorities prosecute men who once worked for his family. Finally, the judge announced the sentence. Dominic would serve 18 months in a minimum security federal facility, followed by 3 years of supervised release. He would also pay a large fine and complete community restitution. Claire closed her eyes. 18 months was painful. But it was not the end of their future. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around them. Dominic stopped before entering the federal transport vehicle. I will understand if you cannot wait, he told Claire. She held his face between her hands. I am not waiting for you to become innocent. His expression tightened. I am choosing the man who finally accepted responsibility. Dominic kissed her forehead. I love you. Claire smiled through her tears. I love you too. 6 weeks later, Bennett House opened. The first residents entered through wide glass doors beneath a sign bearing Thomas Bennett's name. The building included affordable rehabilitation rooms, a therapy center, and a garden where families could sit without feeling rushed. Margaret cut the opening ribbon from her wheelchair. Natalie became the administrative manager. Dr. Price accepted the position of medical director. Michael Torres joined the community advisory board, making certain workers and patients always had a voice. Eleanor attended under federal supervision. She had pleaded guilty to concealing financial crimes and received probation because of her age, health, and cooperation. She transferred most of her remaining Vale shares into a patient protection trust. Vale Senior Living survived under new leadership. The stolen money was recovered through seized accounts, property sales, and court settlements. Residents whose care had been reduced received compensation. Madison accepted a plea agreement and testified against her father. Senator Calloway was convicted of bribery, fraud, obstruction, and conspiracy connected to Thomas Bennett's death. Aaron Pike received a reduced sentence for providing his father's recording, but he still faced punishment for the break-in and threats. Ethan went to trial. Claire testified for 2 days. She spoke about the missing funds, the false complaint against her license, her father's hidden evidence, and the 40 minutes Ethan waited before calling for help. Ethan was convicted of fraud, obstruction, conspiracy, and criminally negligent homicide. Before sentencing, he asked to speak with Claire. She refused. She had already heard every truth she needed. 18 months passed. On the morning Dominic was released, Claire waited outside the facility in a blue Mercedes she had purchased with her own salary. Dominic walked through the gate, carrying one small bag. He looked older and thinner, but when he saw her, the guarded expression disappeared. Claire stepped from the car. "You came," he said. "I said I would." He looked at the vehicle and smiled. "Your car? My car, my payments, my decision. I would expect nothing less." Claire drove him directly to Bennett House. Residents and staff welcomed him quietly, without cameras or reporters. In the garden, a new stone bench stood beneath the maple trees. A small inscription honored everyone who had chosen truth when silence was easier. Dominic reached into his coat. Claire raised one eyebrow. "If that is a ring with conditions, put it away." He smiled and opened a simple Tiffany box. "No condition." Inside was a modest diamond ring. "I do not want to rescue you," he said. "I do not want to own your dream or decide your future." He lowered himself onto one knee. "I only want to stand beside you while you build it." Claire looked around the garden her father had inspired, beside the building she had once believed impossible. She thought of the woman who had stood inside the plaza, ashamed because a powerful man said she was not good enough. That woman had not disappeared. She had simply learned the truth. Her worth had never depended on being chosen. "Yes," Claire said. 1 year later, Claire and Dominic married beneath the maple trees at Bennett House. Margaret sat in the front row. Eleanor held her hand. Natalie's daughter scattered white flowers along the path. There were no politicians, no business arrangements, and no promises built on fear. Only family, accountability, and a future earned through truth. Claire had once believed losing Ethan was the worst thing that could happen to her. In the end, losing him returned everything he had taken. Her voice, her dream, her father's honor, and the freedom to choose love without losing herself. She had not become powerful because a mafia boss loved her. She became powerful the moment she finally loved and respected herself. So, Claire's story has finally reached its closing moment. And are you still here with me? If you are, then maybe some part of her journey felt familiar. Being betrayed, being misunderstood, feeling pain so deep that even speaking becomes hard. But Claire did not beg to be chosen. She did not stay where her dignity was treated like a weakness. She walked away, even when walking away hurt more than staying. That is the quiet strength many people forget they have. Life does not always let us control who lies to us, who leaves us, or who judges us unfairly. But we can still choose our response. We can pause, breathe, protect our self-respect, and refuse to become bitter just because someone else behaved badly. That is not coldness. That is discipline with a heart. And yes, choosing yourself may feel lonely at first. Even your coffee may taste a little sad. But peace grows where begging ends. If Claire's courage spoke to you, comment one word: dignity. And gently, if this story stayed with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this.